Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Market Check, brought to you by Because Bitcoin. A reminder, as always, that there is no second best daily YouTube live stream to talk about these markets. Welcome back, guys. Thank you for spending your Friday with us. I would love to say that it's been a super eventful week for markets, but today's footprint has been pretty similar to really the course of the week, right? Where we have a lot of chop. I mean, it wouldn't even surprise me if Bitcoin is more or less in the exact same place that it started the week. But you've simultaneously, while Bitcoin has done this, you've had altcoins move either incredibly aggressively within certain ecosystems, or you've had obviously altcoins bleeding out, while equities kind of do their own thing and show a little bit of weakness for the first time in a few months. So it does feel a little bit like a pit stop, in a sense. But we'll talk about all that and more in just a second, guys. You guys know me as Snorlax, also as Tommy. I'm joined by Max, Tucker, and Dr. Will's Outlook under the alias of El Presidente Bowden. Welcome, guys. It's been a great week, man. It's been a great week. I know the markets have been a little bit slow, but it's been great being on this show with you guys as always and talking charts. I feel like we've got a pretty good framework to work with here over the next few months. But real quickly, before we start, sharing more of that alpha, some more of that framework, anything else that we're seeing in the charts, we always appreciate when you guys can smash that like button for us. And it's a Friday. It's a Friday, so I'm assuming all of you guys are in a good mood, right? If it's a Friday, I know you guys can be smashing that like button, whether you're finishing up with work already or just getting there now. Happy Friday, guys, the end of the week. But regarding Bitcoin, yeah, I mean, I wish I could say that Bitcoin is about to do something explosive, but it does kind of look like Bitcoin is going sideways at this point. And I think a pit stop mentally as well as for market participants as well as the market is a good way to kind of frame your expectations of where we're at in price, right? Because if you look at the 15-minute chart, you can really see that there hasn't been that much volatility. But if you're zooming out, and somebody posted this in my Twitter replies, like, but if you look at the weekly chart, you're ecstatic. Things are looking very exciting. So a good chance to kind of mentally reset here, obviously. Like I said, altcoins have been showing some pretty significant weakness throughout the course of this week. It's not completely surprising seeing that liquidity drain, given what we're seeing in the equity markets right now. I see the comments already mentioning it. Yeah, the VIX is at 18.5. The dollar is obviously seeing some upside this week as well. But look, I mean, these were things that we've kind of been talking about for a while, at least regarding, the DXY and the VIX. Like we are bearish on the dollar, right? I'm bearish on the dollar. I'm not surprised to see the dollar at 106, 107. And I do think that this is now an important inflection point for the dollar. This is an important inflection point for the VIX. These are mechanically what are driving down the indices as we speak, right? So as long as those things are going up, indices are probably going to continue to grind down. But look, even though these things are showing strength, the S&P is still above 5140. Maybe we get some lower prices on it, maybe we don't, but I would say the market's still holding up pretty strong in the face of these factors. And it's not like the market didn't see these things coming. But we'll see how it shakes out, obviously, here over the next week or so. I know one of the things that we pointed out on yesterday's show as being particularly notable were the candles on NVIDIA and the candles on Apple. Those were some very strong green candles yesterday. And I think as long as those assets are holding their support, think about I'm gonna have to say the word, guys. Think about the lack of breadth in the equity market right now, and how much those indices move from just a select number of tech stocks. If Apple and NVIDIA are holding support, it's pretty unlikely that the dollar is going to be able to break out. It's pretty unlikely that the VIX is going to be able to break out. So these are all important pieces of our contextual picture. We will see, guys, right? But we're going to talk about all that and more on this show, guys. I'm going to open up the floor. We got Max back from vacation. Max, I know it didn't really feel like a vacation at times, but we're happy to have you back. I'd love to know what everybody's thinking about the markets right now. Obviously, we are seeing a little bit of downside here, but I look at Bitcoin, I see funding resetting, I see altcoins nuking their structures on a lower time frame, and Bitcoin's still sitting at 70K, give or take. So, how are we interpreting this?
Oh, hey guys. Hey guys. Happy to be back, man. I feel like I literally blinked and I'm like back suddenly. It's so weird. I don't even remember going on vacation. Like I land in Florida and then suddenly just everything gets crazy for me and, now suddenly I blink and I'm back. I feel like I need to go on another vacation, truthfully. Um Lots to talk about, man. Lots to talk about. You said a lot, Tommy. Like this is that point in the cycle when it's a game of chicken, in my opinion. And it's like who's gonna time-based capitulation first? Um, who's gonna jeet their bags, who can't handle this, right? Because this right here is difficult. But, a lot of us are very heavy altcoins, and this is basically your altcoin index right here. This is others. So, when Bitcoin does this, altcoins get abused even worse, right? It's like, Bitcoin goes down. I don't even know what the percentages were, right? So Bitcoin went down 17. Let's see what others went down. 21 and a half, give or take, depending on where you want to measure, right? And then you're seeing structure, kind of give out here, which is different. So like altcoins went on to print, a lower high, and Bitcoin, of course, printed an ever so slight higher high. So, altcoins are showing a tremendous amount of weakness right here, but that's also not uncommon for this phase of the cycle to see, turbulence under the previous cycle all-time high, which we have marked right here. Again, we can go back in time and actually look at it, right? Let's look at this was the previous cycle right here, right? This was last bull market. Again, we swept the previous all-time high, nuked off of it. Altcoins got destroyed right here. I'll even throw this back up for you guys. Here's others. Again, others is basically your altcoin index. All right. So again, looking at the previous cycle, look at what happened here, guys. Bitcoin went down, 12%, give or take. Others went down 28, 29%, right? So it's like it's the same thing that has happened in previous cycles. We'll go back even one more. Before the 2017 cycle, look at what happened. Look at this. Awful, man. Awful. Took out the previous all-time high, down 33%, and then obviously it went on to pull over a 20x from there. So it's just kind of a game of chicken. It's a tough battle to fight. It's, mentally grueling. You look at this and you're just like, this is exhausting. I just am ready. The Bitcoin halving is in a week. What are we doing here? We're just chopping. Send this shit higher. My alts are bleeding. I'm impatient. Here's the deal, guys. I've marked out all the levels that you need, in my opinion. I've marked out really all of the levels that you need. You've got your April monthly open and Q2 monthly open. We talked about this, you know, here's your open. We come off of it, sweep it, now rejecting off of it. These levels are going to continue to play until suddenly we just God candle, in my opinion. Like it's not going to be like a quick little flip. It's going to be like one day you wake up and Bitcoin's literally like up here, and we just destroyed everybody that shorted basically below this Q2 open. So yeah, I mean it's just expect these levels to continue to play right here, in my opinion. It's a little frustrating, right? Because it's just like, we've been here for so long, right? Like how long have we been here? Basically from when we marked up. This whole consolidation goes back to end of February. It's been 43 days of more or less nothing. Every time we get above the previous cycle all-time high or above 70K, everyone's like, "Yeah, let's go." Every time we're below, it's just despair. Everybody's upset. I don't know. it's a game of patience. One thing that I think should also be acknowledged is that up until right now, we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 green months in a row. I would kind of like at this point, like, let's just keep this month red. Like, let's just close one red month just so we can stop hearing about how many green months we've had in a row and how that's actually bearish. Like, let's just have a red month. We're already halfway through it. We'll chill here, and again, the April open was 71.3. All right. Q2 open was 71.3. Let's just close this month below 71.3. All right. And then, we can work on fading everybody that said sell in May, go away, and run this thing up in May. At this point, we have 2 weeks left. We have 2 weeks left. Let's just close it red, in my opinion. Let's just hang out below 71.3, and we're good to go. We're good to go, in my opinion.
Max, go look at the 2017 run up, right where we're at near the previous all-time high. 2017.
Oh, I see right here.
Yeah, that's us, baby. That's us right there. That's what we
Yeah.
need.
That's pretty real, honestly.
We need to put in that candle, and then we can go, I think.
We don't need anything. All right, this is gonna happen. Like, I don't care what anybody says. The thing that people tend to forget is that you sell the dip expecting for lower. I buy the dip expecting the chop and the breakout. We are not the same. We are absolutely not the same.
Will was born in the chop. What is that Bane comment? Raised in it.
Raised in it.
Will was raised in the chop.
The first hint of light that I saw was the chop solidation of the market when I was born.
Will, you got to say it
All right.
like Bane. Say it like Bane, brother.
This I have an arc story. Okay, it's a coming, it's a coming of age. It's your quinceañera when you hit 16. All right, it's breaking. It's basically breaking the barrier. It's breaking the bubble. It's breaking your virginity. That's what this market is doing. All right, it is taking your innocence away, and if you're not able to take it, you're not able to take it. Right? It is what it is. Some people they can't last. They can't last. They have no staying power. And if you know what I mean, you know what I mean. This market's testing your staying power. It's testing your ability to stay in the game. Right? I think
And
I think
On
this.
your stomach.
Go ahead.
and guys, what I do need before we continue on is I need a little bit of help from you guys. All right. We need to get the likes up, guys. They are egregiously low right now. Right now we got 160 plus people just on YouTube with 50 likes. We're not even 1/3 of the way towards a 1-to-1. Guys, if you are here, if you are enjoying the content, if you have not supported the channel yet, do me a solid and hit that thumbs up. Guys, we just hit 12K subscribers. There we go. There we go. Again, thank you guys so much for the support, but do us a solid. The mega cap tech overlords, they demand that we get likes on our video in order to grow. So do me a solid, guys. Hit that like button and also hit that subscribe button if you are new here, guys. It really helps us grow. I promise I wouldn't ask, I wouldn't bug you, but it just takes one quick moment. We're here for free every single day. All you got to do, hit that thumbs up button. That's it, guys. Hit that thumbs up button and you do your part in helping us grow. And you guys always come through for us. So again, you're probably listening, you got headphones on, maybe you're sitting there at work, you're hiding in a cubicle, you're like, man, fuck my boss. I just want to trade with the BB boys, man. Like, I wish I could like it, but he's going to see me on my phone and I'll get in trouble. You need to get in trouble, man. You need to get in trouble. You need to take that phone out in front of the whole office and you got to hit that like button for the BB boys. All right.
I mean, or you can just be that person that's selling the dip and just go to the bathroom and then hit the like button there.
Yeah.
Either one works. We'll take either scenario.
Will, how
I
could
did want to.
you as a man look your daughter in the eyes after jeeting your bags. You know what I mean? That's what I always think. Is I look at my beautiful son. He's 9 months old. He's smart. He's gorgeous. He's a happy baby. How could I, as his father, go home and look him in the eyes after having jeeted my bags right before a Bitcoin halving? I don't know how that would be possible personally.
Look, all I know is if you did that, I would have to call CPS. But
Yeah.
the other thing is too, just to kind of add to that, is like when you have kids, it's like a whole nother level of dedication, right? It's a whole nother level. Like your your whole investment is for their future, and those who know, they know, right? The dads aren't playing. They're not playing. They are literally putting in what they can put in, and they are eating ramen for lunch that they heated in the sun because they didn't even want to use electricity to keep the bill down, so they were able to invest more money. Like it's like they know, and this is your kid's future at the end of the day. You've lived your life, right? You lived your life. You're doing it for your kid, and and I think like a lot of people, they don't have that understanding in these markets. They don't have the dedication. They don't have the drive. They're just in here playing around, right? They're in here playing around. They're thinking that they can make more money by trading the market continuously, and in and out in their positions, when in reality the market gives you opportunities to trade, and then it gives you opportunities to stay still and stay vigilant and add. And right now it's giving people opportunities to add. It's not giving trading is volatility. There is almost no volatility up here. Like if you're trying to trade this range, you're absolutely getting your back blown out. So I don't even know why like people even entertain this happening drop or any of this stuff, because it occurred a couple times. One time was in a window of a very short time, a short period, and that was in 2017. The other one, again, if we look at, basically, um, 2020, it was again, but that was more related to a pandemic. It's just not the same thing. And that's where a lot of people mess up here. They don't understand there's a difference between these scenarios. There's a different environment for every single market. This market doesn't have to adhere to your, halvening pullback. It doesn't have to. And we never had ETFs ever in any cycle before this one. Expect the unexpected.
So one thing I think we need to talk about today is DXY, and I know that Tommy already has some thoughts brewing. I already know it. I know it. Because just like he likes to FUD ETH, he also equally appears to like to FUD DXY. And we are, of course, seeing some, dare I say, resiliency at a minimum, maybe a little bit of resiliency. Let me hide these. We don't need these lines right here. We can do this fresh.
Once you cook on this, I have something to add to it, but I'll let you cook first.
Yeah, so I'm gonna set the stage a little bit, and if you're okay with it, Will, I'd love to hear from Tommy first, just because I know Tommy's spoken at length, at least to me, and I believe on this show about DXY. Okay, and I just made a video on this. I shared some thoughts. I'm gonna hold back sharing too many because, again, I am dropping a video on it very, very soon, and honestly, I feel like Tommy's gonna say it all. But just a quick little refresher here, guys. Like, DXY rallying is bad for risk historically, right? There's small periods of time where they can kind of sync up, but you can see here, in 2017, DXY goes straight down. And here I'll label these just for everybody here. DXY, and we'll put this in green. And then Bitcoin up above. Not that you guys don't know what that chart looks like. You obviously do. But you can see here the relationship, right? On the higher time frame, it's very, very pronounced, right? Again, DXY pulling back here before last cycle. And then, of course, we had, a pretty awesome bull market. And then, similarly, even just marking out some more local stuff, right? When did DXY put in its, blow off top? In 2022? DXY puts in blow off top. Bitcoin and crypto are effectively at their lows, right? So what we don't want to see happen here is, look, here's a prime example, something we don't want to see. We'll put this in red. What we don't want to see is, crypto goes down because we start to get a DXY move up. And that's why I named the title of today's show, Dollar Milkshake or Bitcoin Milkshake, Market Check. So obviously, it would be very difficult for crypto to rally aggressively, in the event that the dollar goes up like this. If the dollar goes up like this, then it's probably going to mean, unfortunately, Bitcoin goes down. It'd be very rare for that to happen. But now that we've set the stage for those, some people don't watch the relationship closely. It is important. Day by day, it doesn't matter a ton. Anything can kind of happen. But on the higher time frames, it's a pretty obvious relationship, in my opinion. So, Tommy, the mic is yours, man. Tell us about the dollar. Tell us about DXY. Tell us about what you're thinking, man, because there is some strength today for sure.
There is some strength today, for sure. I definitely think that, it's notable. But I will also say what is also notable is that generally you see people only bold post the dollar with it at range highs. I have always found that to be very funny. It does look very bullish on a high time frame, right? But I mean, I think you need to observe the whole context, right? Like if we zoom in on the dollar, and really my biggest thing with the dollar has been that I kind of find the pattern to be pretty similar when you invert it to the one that Bitcoin had, at 25 to 30K, right? Like that to me looks very similar. Before Bitcoin came in, it painted that double bottom. Obviously, we know what happened after, Bitcoin found that second bottom. It ended up ripping higher, which in the dollar's case would mean that it would probably rip lower. I'm not saying that I think that the dollar is going to have like some parabolic downside necessarily, but we are coming into resistance. And I really think the majority of this dollar strength that we've seen is driven more so by the movement that we're seeing in the TLT market, which is something that, treasuries, I've been talking about this for weeks, man. Like TLT, I didn't really have any reason to be fundamentally bearish on TLT. I'm sure macro guys could explain that better than me, but from a technical standpoint, I look at TLT and it reminds me of like, at least when I'm looking at TLT inverted, or not even inverted, it looks like the Bitcoin top, as if it's like forming a bottom, if that makes sense. So like just invert the Bitcoin top and overlay it on the current downtrend on TLT. I was expecting this downside in treasuries, which is generally pretty beneficial for the dollar, as we're seeing. But I do think that treasury downside is probably capped around like 86, 87 on TLT, which, if you kind of give that confluent level with the dollar, I don't really see the dollar having the strength to be able to break through 106, 107. You add in the context, in my opinion, of, okay, like what the dollar index, what does that imply when it goes up? It means that people are leaving assets for dollars. Let's look at the assets that really drive the indices. For example, Apple. Will Will especially has been joking about how it looks like, it's painting the McDonald's pattern, but Will and I were both looking for this level to be ultimately support on Apple. Apple put in a huge candle to the upside yesterday. That's pretty telling. And if Apple doesn't break through that support, and you also have something like Nvidia not breaking through support, then how is the dollar going to realistically break higher, right? Like what are people pulling dollars out of, and into, or what are people taking profit from and into dollars, if not the biggest assets in the indices? So I think, could I see the dollar ripping higher? I mean, yeah, that looks like a pretty bullish chart on the surface, right? But you have to like pay attention, I think, to, the important areas of this market, which are right now, Apple and Nvidia, for example, the two largest companies in the indices are at support. They're showing demand. You have TLT that's probably not going to drop significantly lower than it is, probably a few more points. And then, of course, you have the dollar coming into resistance, which, I think we can debate whether or not the dollar will nuke through this range or whether or not it will rotate back to range lows. Like, to me, that's a more like I can digest that argument maybe a bit more. Maybe if you're not like full blown or full bore bear on the dollar, you could just see a rotation back to the range lows, and before an, maybe an eventual rotation back to the highs. But either way, the dollar just does not look ready to me just yet to really break out. And I think if we do have some sort of pullback in equities, you probably see it look a lot like last summer, where price chopped down in a very methodical fashion. You had, 200 or 300, like maybe 300 point sells, but mostly like 200, 250 point sells over 2 weeks. That would ultimately be eaten up by any squeezes within that trend. And, risk assets had already basically bottomed at that point. You'd had, I guess equities hadn't quite bottomed, but Bitcoin had already bottomed at that point on a USD price. Yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought a little bit, but either way, guys, I think the headwinds are still stronger than the tailwinds for the dollar. But obviously don't take your eye off of it, right? Because if the scenario plays out where, we reject from here on the dollar and the rotation to the downside is only to range lows, right? Like it doesn't break down from the range. Then you obviously have to be cognizant of what happens when the dollar is going to eventually rotate back to range highs. But contextually, if you break down from this range on the dollar, that's the type of thing that occurs in a super cycle for risk. So yeah, you have a clear pivot kind of across the board, but I'm not bullish on the dollar here, man. I was expecting this move, if we didn't roll over like really aggressively from 105, which we didn't. I was looking for 106, 107. That's the level that we're coming into right now. I kind of think that given that we have, confluent major stocks at support, TLT beginning to bleed a little bit more. And I don't really think that the structure and volatility is necessarily conducive for a volatility event yet. So I'm not really expecting the dollar to break out here, but I do think it can maybe trade a little bit higher, which would obviously put some pressure on equity markets and risk markets and liquidity in general. So yeah, that's the long spiel, but I'm not buying the dollar strength, man. I'm not. I think it's got a little bit more to go. You're going to see it chop and then probably rotate back down to the lows at least.
That's largely my thoughts as well, Tommy. And I appreciate how you look at this and you just like you say, well, the reason DXY is moving, it looks bullish, but there's more under the surface, right? And one thing that you didn't mention, which I would like to get your thoughts on, is that typically, when you look at gold as well, right? Like gold is going parabolic. Like gold is busting out right now. It's at $2,400 an ounce. When we look at gold and DXY relationship, right? Typically, it's a negative correlation as well. DXY down, gold up. There's periods of time, again, just like anything, where the correlation is loose and they can kind of move up together and stuff like that. But on the higher time frame, right, typically they move against each other. And again, like even right here, right? I'll put this in blue. Again, there's weeks that can go by where the correlation breaks, but typically, they will move against each other to a degree. And gold, of course, is breaking out like aggressively right now. If we look at this chart, my thought is that, gold will probably just continue to chad like it is right here. And then I imagine, within the next few weeks, we probably see DXY, and gold begin to have that negative sync up once again. Are you looking at gold at all and thinking that gold is potentially tipping its hand, to what the dollar is about to do? Or do you think that they could, in theory, rally together? Or maybe it doesn't matter?
I think that'd probably be a better question for Jackus, because I'll admit I really don't follow gold as closely as I probably should. To be totally honest, I know why gold is up, obviously, because yields are rising. But I would attribute the fact the dollar is up more so to the fact that TLT is down. I think that's probably more the driver of the dollar upside is going to be TLT. So I'm just going to highlight that again. As long as TLT is moving down,
Yeah.
You'll probably see the dollar continue to show this strength. on a higher time frame is my guess. But as far as the correlation between the dollar and gold, yeah, I think that's probably going to be a better question for Jackus. He is our gold guru, unless the doctor has anything that he would want to chime in on that.
Yeah, I mean, I know quite a bit about gold too. Like my expectations here were very similar to Jackus's in a 2022, actually closer in 2021, once we started tapping and tapping and tapping the top there. And I think there's some alpha there in gold and dollar. And, a lot of people aren't really looking at that. They're looking at the specifics of dollar up. If you were to draw a line, because I do think that you can chart dollar just like you can chart anything, but if you were to draw a line there across, resistance there, max at where we are right now, currently at the high, you're just basically running into resistance, which makes sense. Um, so at this, and you could actually take that same line and draw it straight across to your left, really really far, and you'll see that, basically you're sitting here underneath like a HTF resistance. So you could actually dial, yeah, I was going to say you could dial your time frame up a little bit. That little shoulder right there is where I think your failure is going to occur. You can see right there basically where you hit that last time over there, and I think it was in the 90s. And you basically failed to the low, and that's what I'm expecting for dollar here. But the other thing to dollar, I think that a lot of people aren't thinking about is like we just had what was it, $1.3 trillion printed, and then we also had other bills that have basically gone through, which is it's going to require printing of money and more money flow into the economy. And people always forget about money flow into the economy when they're looking at dollar. They tend to look at dollar and think it means sell off. And the movement that Tommy was talking about from high caps, yeah, I expect that a lot of people are in, and we've talked about this, Tommy, tons of times on the show. A lot of people are going to be billions on billions on billions of dollars in profits, probably in some scenarios even trillions of dollars in profit on these markets, and they're looking to reallocate elsewhere to de-risk even though they're high caps and a lot of people feel safe, they're trying to de-risk those positions and actually take on more risk, which means that you'll probably see those flows of that liquidity that's now moving to cash move to higher risk positions. And the economy that we're sitting in, it only makes sense to do that. Gold itself, like I think I had a marker of like 5,000 or something like that, or 5,600 was like the high if you were to run the fibs. And gold going up is more indication of people looking for store of values, and gold going up, when you see gold going up, you should expect that people don't trust the dollar, they don't trust the economy, because if they trusted the economy and they trusted the dollar, they wouldn't be looking for store of values, right? They would be sitting in dollar. But we're continuing to see store of values, whether that be Bitcoin or gold or other forms of it, continue to get bid going into this market. This means that people don't trust the dollar. So like to look at the dollar and say it's bullish as opposed to like it's just ranging, because you could draw a box theoretically where it sits too and kind of see that it's been at a range for a period of time. There's no reason at all to think that that's the case when you're looking and continuing to see these store of values get bid.
I'm just kind of tinkering around right here with like the Fed cycles, and
You've
it
pretty
tip
much already topped.
it looks to me like, just on first glance, right? Here's DXY above and then Fed funds below. It looks like, during the Fed pause into cuts, DXY trends down, right? So like let's keep moving. Fed pause and then into cuts, DXY moves down. Fed pause all the way into cuts, DXY struggles, is weak. I don't know. I mean, I'm just kind of tinkering with it. I haven't really played with it too much. It just crossed my mind like, hey, let's take a look at it and see. But
No, rates does factor. Like the fact that rates have not been cut yet
yeah,
is more indicative of people not, because the more you start to see, and it does work out in the way that you're saying, regardless of how it may run through the dollar, because the more people see an easing on the market or an easing on on the spin side, you're going to start to see more and more investments because it means it's going to be easier to invest. It's going to be easier to see those store of values, aka stocks, crypto, gold, all continue to rise because people are going to be more willing to invest. They got less of a boot on their neck so they can breathe.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I want to look at TLT. Like that's so I used to focus more on it because I had a position in it and I don't anymore. I closed it a while ago. But I look at this chart right here. I don't know. I mean, how low is it going to go? Does it want to come back to fill in this gap? Like, is that what all this is about? This gap right here? I don't know if you're looking at this, Tommy. Is this what you're thinking happens? We fill in this gap and we don't make a new low, or do you think TLT could actually go on to make a new low?
I have been in the minority, I think, that have been saying that I do think TLT is going to make a new low this year. I don't think it's going to happen this quarter. It's probably more something that you see happen in like Q4-ish, I would guess. But when I look at TLT, guys, what I've always said I see the inverted Bitcoin top forming on TLT here at this bottom. And I think that does imply another stab at the lows for TLT. But we saw in October, obviously, when TLT bottomed, it bottomed extremely hard, and then risk assets bid extremely hard because, I mean, I'm sure there's somebody who could better explain it, but for me, I just kind of view TLT and treasuries in general. I know it's like not a true barometer of liquidity, but for risk assets, it's been a really good signal as far as, when TLT is going down, liquidity and risk assets has been pretty poor. When TLT is going up, risk assets have been ripping, man. I mean, they ripped off the low in October. So I just continue to point to that. But here locally speaking, no, I do think that it can probably come down into like 86, 85, probably just 86, 87. And that's going to continue to put pressure on liquidity in markets. But then I kind of feel like once that's done, you're going to get probably a huge response from risk assets over the next few months until TLT starts trending down again.
Interesting. I mean, the implication of TLT going higher, though, of course, would be the 20-year probably going above 5.5%. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. Wobby, what's up, man? How we doing?
Hey, what's going on, man? Yeah, Tucker sent me a message to join you hooligans on this Friday morning. So just let Tommy finish talking about the dollar and figured I'd jump in and join the chaos. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, welcome, bro, man. Things are good. We got into this whole discussion because look at the chart right here. Like, obviously, the DXY rallying a little bit it's not super encouraging for risk, right? Like, dollar strength is usually stocks sell off, crypto sells off, anything that's risk sells off. Although I personally view holding a lot of dollars as more risk than actually holding something that is classified as risk. But if you look at this chart here, Bitcoin up above, DXY down below, I mean, there's a pretty clear relationship on the higher time frame. So we just went into, a lot longer than I had planned for. Like, I don't love talking like macro, but on a day like today when DXY is pushing 106, and then most things are red across the board, we just got into a whole discussion about, although DXY locally looks bullish, it's not that simple. It's looking more bullish, but it's really more tethered to rates and Fed policy and, bonds. And Tommy outlined a really solid case for, TLT potentially going a little bit lower, but, ultimately, probably forming a bottom. It sounds like maybe later this year. And of course, TLT going down has been good for the dollar. So anyways, we just went into a whole discussion, but yeah, just wanted to, provide a little bit of context, but yeah, here we are.
Yeah, I think, being this close out from the halving and just us chopping around, I think that's the most bullish case. Because if you look at 2016, we rallied pretty heavily going into July. That's when the halving was in 2016. And then we just ended up nuking 35%. And then all this just got absolutely decimated. 2020 was a bit of an anomaly because the context there was the Fed was doing QE. So I think the longer we consolidate around here, right, and pull off more of an echo bubble that like basically of last year, I think that would be a lot more healthier than if we were to just like rally up like crazy. On-chain alts are getting absolutely decimated, and I did see a post from somebody on Twitter giving the recent highs for a lot of tokens, and things that have been rallying in Q4 of last year and Q1 of this year. They've been either bleeding profusely against Bitcoin like an injective.
Hey, Wabi, we lost you a little bit. Can anybody else hear Wabi, or is that on my end?
No, he's Mr. Roboto.
Oh,
I thought it was
man.
me.
It's over. Wabi's frozen in time, man. Wabi.
I mean,
Shoot. Oh, no.
I won't lie. I don't know whose alts are getting decimated. Mine aren't.
There are definitely altcoins getting decimated, but if you're in the right things, I mean, it's kind of funny because like some sectors don't feel it at all. Like if you were just in Bitcoin ordinals over the last week, you're literally not even caring about this dip one bit.
That's what I'm saying. Like ordinals aren't moving at all.
But we got two wobbies.
Here.
I should be good.
There we
now.
go. There we go. Okay, he's back. He's back. Sorry, you rugged there a while ago,
Yeah,
Wabi. You might have to start that over. Whatever you said, we didn't really hear you.
I had my VPN on. That usually happens. Like if you have a VPN on and you stream, you just get rugged. Forgot to turn that off.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Solana down over 20% from the recent high, AVAX 30%, Phantom 30%, Injective down 40%, TIA down 50%, Arbitrum down 50%, Optimism down 50%. A lot of things are pretty down significantly against BTC and their USDT pair. And on-chain is just catching up to that slaughter because, when you say, oh, on-chain is holding up well, there's always a reckoning that happens. And that happened this time last year as well with some on-chain stuff until Pepe came onto the market. So I know Pepe is likely going to get listed this month because I think they're going to get listed on Coinbase Futures on the 18th or something. So maybe we have like a little alt rally post-halving. So either way, like if you bought last year and you've been compounding since last year, you're up quite a bit. Even since like February, if you compounded, you're up quite a bit. Unless like you're new and you bought recently, like over the last few weeks, you should be up considerably. I'm
Wabi, it's over, man. You're rugging. Anybody else hear Wabi, or is it me?
Absolutely not.
Okay, yeah, Wabi's getting rugged. We're gonna have to figure that out before he continues. We can't have that. We can't have that. There's been a lot of talk about like which cycle this is most similar to. And I would say, I mean, just looking at similarities, like it's probably closest to, the 2017 cycle. And I mean, this wouldn't surprise me as well. I mean, look, in 2016 through 2017, we saw, pretty pronounced DXY strength, moving up. There were some chop days, of course, right? But chop. And then ultimately, like Bitcoin was grinding upwards as well into the new all-time high while DXY was showing some strength. But then, of course, we saw them kind of sync up how they normally do and how they should. And we actually saw DXY roll over aggressively. And then Bitcoin, of course, went on to pull like a 20x from that point. So, maybe it's something similar like, this again, where we're just seeing this little pocket right around the Bitcoin halving where, we do see DXY grinding higher with Bitcoin, showing some strength, but not like going crazy quite yet. And then, the next year or so, we should see a DXY, aggressive puke, and that would be a major tailwind for Bitcoin and crypto.
I think if you did see that sort of puke on the dollar, that's like, that's like I said, that's literally risk super cycle. But also, I have to imagine the rhetoric, if the dollar's getting devalued to that degree, is going to be pretty, like, people are going to be scared. I would say at that point, like, your dollars, yeah, your the value of your dollar is about to decline by like 20 to 30%. If that becomes the narrative, or more, God forbid, that's going to cause a frenzy and a rush into risk assets for one. But what sort of move did the dollar have in 2020 from like a?
That's
What'd you
actually
say?
solid. He
Hello?
was asking about 2020.
Did Tommy
the
get
dollar.
rugged too?
Are you here, Max?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, it sounded like you just stopped speaking. I didn't know if you got rugged.
No. What was the move on the dollar from 2020? How big was that in hindsight? I'm trying to recall.
This moved down.
Yeah, I can look at it right now.
So it went from 105, or I'm sorry, it went from 100 roughly. Went from 100 down to 90, we'll say.
Yeah, if that happens again, but you get it maybe even more so, people are going to get scared and they're going to start allocating. For one, asset prices just go through the freaking roof if that happens. But there's going to be long-lasting effects about how people view the dollar after that.
I think the thing that nobody's entertaining too, and tell me if I sound different on my headset, but the one thing nobody's entertaining also is that the dollar could remain relatively ranged here and markets can still rally much, much higher. Like, it doesn't have to break these lows. And I think that's what not enough people are looking at here. They're wanting the lows to break, and because they're not seeing the lows break, they're trying to say that, oh, well, the dollar's going to go up. Just like they're wanting the highs to break on Bitcoin and they're not seeing the highs break. So they're thinking, they're like, oh, it's gonna dump. We're gonna see this 35-40% retrace like we normally see every cycle. And again, I think the environments are just different now from then. And I think people really need to think about that. Again, ETFs are big. They are a big player here now. And I think not enough people are entertaining passive flows and these companies that are looking to eat up as much Bitcoin as they can while it's still available.
Tucker, what's up, brother? I haven't heard much from you today.
Well,
wow. Wow.
He said
all
nope.
I have to say is wow. Never
I
in
bet
my
he'll be
life.
right back. I bet he'll be right.
Never
I
in
knew
my life have I been.
Can you hear me, Max?
I don't know if I want to hear you, Tucker, after what just happened, man. That
I
was
know. No, I had to. My thing, I had to reload it. I'm almost home. I'll be at the desk. But yeah, no, I was trying to talk a little bit earlier, but it was rugging me for some reason. Okay, on the dollar quickly. I think it's rising because of inflation expectations, right? We pushed back rate cuts another 3 or 4 months. Hikes, obviously, and higher for longer, obviously, are positive for dollar, upside. So us pushing back the expectation of cuts is indeed bullish for the dollar. That's probably why we're seeing it somewhat rise and TLT somewhat nuke. Um, but yeah, I saw what you were doing with the Fed funds rate. That's exactly what I was going to touch on. Um, it distributes a little bit. You can see a little bit of upside, but overall, once you are in the tail end of the hiking cycle and about to cut, that's it for the dollar. Like, that's like it nukes from there every time. So cuts are inherently bearish for the dollar. So as soon as we get there, that'll probably be it for the dollar. But I think we're in somewhat of an interesting regime where like markets do want to remain status quo, right? Like I'd rather us stay higher for longer than start cutting aggressively right here, honestly. Even if that means the dollar remains range bound. like Tommy said, though, if we are going to get a super cycle and risk, like we're going to need the dollar to nuke. We're going to need cuts without any bearish catalyst. I don't know if we get that. That would be nice. But for now, as long as we can kind of remain status quo and keep a lid on inflation, between 3 and 4%, I think that is the ideal environment for risk for now. When we get into Q3, we'll reevaluate, but because that's when cuts are priced for. But yeah, that's my short little spiel on the dollar. I think as long as inflation expectations can remain somewhat anchored, I think we're good. But if we do start to see reacceleration, you're going to see the dollar start ripping again, and that would be not good for risk. So that's kind of my thoughts on the dollar.
Yeah, I agree with that. You mentioned inflation fears. Are you in the camp that we have a serious resurgence of inflation like we saw, 18 months ago? Or do you think that it's just kind of we're going to hover, sub 4% headline, and that's kind of the new normal?
I mean, ideally, that would be the new normal. Ideally, we don't see a resurgence because that, if they have to go and hike again for any reason, that would be the most bearish scenario for me. Like that would be
Yeah.
very bad for risk. But yeah, as long as we can kind of hang out between 3 and 4, and then over the next 12 to 18 months, slowly try to drop that down, between 2 and 3, that would be probably the most bullish scenario. I don't think it's going to drop off a cliff, but I also don't think it's going to rip. But as long as we can kind of keep it here, and keep fears or expectations of inflation somewhat in check, then I think that's probably the best for both the dollar and risk to kind of stay anchored.
Yeah.
Paul brings up a good comment there too. If we want to entertain that, I think that's always interesting. But I think it's a little bit different than that, Paul. But that's always an interesting conversation.
Yeah, and guys, before we continue, do me a solid. If you are watching and you are enjoying, maybe you're on YouTube, maybe you're on X, please do us a favor, do us a solid. We got Wabi back now. Hit that like button, guys. It really helps boost the content. It helps the channel grow. Again, we're growing so quickly, and it's because you guys do little things and help us out, like hitting that like button. Again, we dream of living in a world where we don't need to ask for likes, but there's a ton of emphasis put on content creators basically getting likes and whatever. So do us a solid, hit that thumbs up button, guys. It really makes a difference. Again, I know there's probably half of you watching that are like, somebody else will like it. I don't need to like it. Somebody else will pick up the slack. No one else will pick up the slack. You have to ask what you can do for BB, not what BB can do for you. And then BB does a lot for you. But we need you guys to hit that thumbs up button, guys. We really do. It's free to hit the thumbs up button. It's free to hit the thumbs up button. Wabi, you're back, man. You were saying something. I don't even remember what you were saying because you rugged so long ago. But
Yeah.
What's up, man?
Yeah, I should be back 100%.
All right.
100%. All right. So, I think the longer we consolidate here, the bigger we're going to pump out of the halving, right? So, not much is different from this cycle outside of BTC pumping, 6-7% from its all-time high, but it's just been ping-ponging in a range for about a month and a half now, right? So total three is still, ping-ponging back and forth. Stablecoin market cap all-time high is still below where it was in early 2022. So I think we have 18 to 20 months left in this cycle. And most of the Q4 upside volatility happens by the time we get to Thanksgiving, early December, right? Take a look at last year, take a look at 2021, take a look at 2017. So I don't really believe this left translated talk where BTC is going to be at 120K by late November, early December. I don't believe that for a single second at all. None whatsoever.
You think that would actually be bearish if that happened, Wabi?
I do. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know what to do because in my book, like in the way I see it, a Bitcoin that gets to over 100K, you're going to need some time for that to draw down to the next bottom of the bear market. So I think honestly, there's so many good catalysts that, we can end up peaking in early 2026, late 2025. I'm left curving it in that sense. I don't think this time is different, none whatsoever. And if we even look at 2020, right? Right, like early 2020, when we were at like just like February of 2020, we were at like 10K ish. Everything looked extremely bullish for us to break all-time high, but then COVID happened, right? Even June of 2019, I remember that very clearly, right? Like mid-June, we hit like 14K. It was very, very euphoric. And I understand the sentiment where, oh, total three pumped like 2x, 3x when it broke all time high in early 2021. The context is very different compared to now. That was when this asset class, like the altcoin space was a baby, right? It didn't need that much money to pump. And, you know, you can bull post and go crazy and say bears are effed and all that stuff, but for bulls, you're going to have to wait a while too, right? DeFi summer, a lot of the leading altcoins, right, that were on centralized exchanges like a Phantom, like a KSM, like a Polkadot. After DeFi summer, a lot of those things went into ranges for months and months and months. So, just take a look at some coins that dominated Q4. They've just been range bound or profusely bleeding against Bitcoin, but they might come back, right? Like a TIA. The question is, are you willing to go through time-based corrections? And for me, I am a very, very, very patient individual. And yeah, I am expecting a top in 18 months, 18 to 20 months, late 2025, early 2026. And more than anything, as far as like what I'm seeing for Bitcoin in the short term, it's really looking like last year, right? Where BTC hit 30K in March and then made a slightly higher high, right? So maybe we hit 77K and then we have the ETH ETF. And then, perhaps we can have an on-chain run like we did last summer, right? From mid-April all the way to mid-May. And then we just kind of chop around for a few months until Q4. That would be the most bullish scenario because it's usually the post-halving year that goes crazy. And just using BTC as the only metric, as this time is different, I think it paints it paints a half-truth picture, right? Because stable coin supply, I think that's very important. I think total 3 is important. I think Ethereum hitting all-time high is important. So I think we just have to wait for the post-halving and seeing if Ethereum catches a strong bid going into the ETF approval or denial, and that happens in late May. And yeah, those are kind of my thoughts with everything. And with Total 3 in specific, I'm comparing it to Bitcoin. One of our guys, Barry, he mentioned that if you use Total 3 paired up against Bitcoin, you'll see that once Total 3 almost reaches Bitcoin's market cap, that's usually like a good indicator for how frothy things can get. So again, I'm very, very patient, and those are my thoughts. But either way, I remain fully deployed. So if I'm wrong, it doesn't really matter because I am fully deployed, and I'm willing to wait as long as it takes. Honestly, as long as it takes.
I wanted to kind of jump in there a little bit. I think that, I mean, those are good takes, but I feel like the market is just different. Like we exceeded all-time high before the halving, right? Which means this could be an expedited cycle or a cycle ahead of time, so it doesn't have to follow traditional cycles. We have ETS. We never had ETS before. I want to just highlight Bitcoin. I don't really care about the altcoin market specifically in this conversation, but we have ETFs with Bitcoin, and we have many ETFs on top of that stacking. Not just like one. We have multiple, and because we have like this just completely different environment, no pandemic, pretty much came out of a dreadful bear market. And I think people are just still PTSD'd from that bear market, just reaching all-time highs, never came to all-time highs, and just absolutely shit the bed and went into some multi-year bear run. I think you could exceed this high here before and or going into the halving. I think you could hit 100K. You could hit 90K, 85K. you could have a big retrace from there, a really big retrace, a 30%, 40% pull down, and then you could go a lot higher. And I think like not enough people are entertaining that as a possibility, that they're entertaining the traditional route for Bitcoin when this isn't the traditional environment. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on that, but like I'm definitely willing and more than willing to be open minded to a cycle change this cycle because of the environment that we're in so many different scenarios that have played out this cycle.
I mean, I could see something like, where Bitcoin begins to trade. I mean, I obviously know it's going to shift more towards the commodity space, but I can absolutely see a scenario where, maybe Bitcoin just puts in like, I don't know, man. I don't really know how to phrase this necessarily, but like, because I don't know that but like where Bitcoin is grinding up slowly but surely over time, and these corrections that we have look less like cycles, and more like just dips within market structure, right? So it's like maybe Bitcoin goes into like, I don't know, 100 plus 120. I'm not saying that's imminent, but maybe we see that over the summer, and then it pulls back into like 80K. People will say that it's over because you have altcoins. Altcoins will, I think, keep their traditional cycles because they're more tied to liquidity. But Bitcoin, kind of just this perpetual grind up where we get corrections, but ultimately we don't see the same level of cyclicality with Bitcoin anymore that we're going to see with altcoins. And I think that, I don't know if that's what you meant, Will, but like, a quote unquote cyclical top, could come this year in the sense that altcoins draw down like 60 or 75, 80, 90% even. But Bitcoin, I mean, I just think it's probably just going to be this perpetual grind up over time, even if it's not like just a parabolic upside that we're used to seeing.
Let me ask you another question, and let me give you a scenario. The scenario is a rising tide lifts all ships, which means if Bitcoin goes to 100K, all these altcoins are going up. Doesn't matter if they want to have pullbacks or not. And then, yes, they could draw down in a big way, but like how high will they go before that drawdown occurs, right? And then at that point, even though that drawdown could be significant, it may not be as significant as your entry. You see what I'm saying?
Mm.
Like I think that's that's kind of the left curve for me, is like everything here is different. It's not that this time is different. It's the environment is different, right? It's kind of like going from the age of coal, the industrial into the industrial age, right? Or sorry, the industrial age into I forget what it's called, but basically where we changed eras in a sense, from economy to economy, and horse and carriage to cars, or horses to horse and carriage, and so on and so forth. These things, they tend to evolve with the economy, with the environment, with things that happen. And I think that this is the era of cryptocurrency. I think it's the era of digital currency. And this could be that shift in era for Bitcoin to just be different this cycle, with all the cyclicals that have already occurred. Again, I do want to highlight the ETFs that just everybody wanted in 2021 that never came.
This is really interesting, Lobby. You just said this, and I just made the chart. I've never looked at this before. This is Bitcoin's market cap divided by total 3. And this line down here is basically like 0, like when they're trading at parity with one another. And I've marked out when basically we've had a global top, like 2017 top, we were basically at 0 or around it below. And then, distribution for sure, this entire region was when, we came off of this high for Bitcoin divided by total 3. There's the top, and again, another top right around here. This is something to keep an eye on for sure. Like if we start to see Bitcoin and total 3, like you just said, Wabi, like sync up and do this, It's probably getting close to a top, you know, like that, probably close to a Bitcoin top. That's really interesting. Actually, I've never thought about that, but here it is visualized.
Yeah, I'm just left curving it.
I don't think this is left curve at all. I think this is a sneaky right curve find, because I've never seen this before, and here it is in the chart. So
yeah, I do well thinking like pretty linearly, right? Like I don't really think what if this, what if this, what if this, what if that. And you know that brought me to, you know, my thesis on ENA, on Athena. I found myself thinking about so many different scenarios on spaces, and I'm like, you know what, like screw it, I'm just gonna sell my soul and then, you know, go into this bad boy, and it's been doing well. And I like to stick on one thing and one thing only. So if in past cycles this happened, I'm gonna follow that, right? And I think, you know, with ETFs and all that stuff, if there's an ETF approved for Ethereum, then I think that's when you have you know, a mega run on alts. But they usually come in waves, right? In waves of 3, right? So in 2020 2021 cycle, we had that first run in DeFi summer. That's one. Then in Q1, and then in Q4. So you have 3 waves, right? And then you also had 3 waves in 2017. You had that run that started in like mid-January all the way to like May. And then you had a huge correction. Ethereum went down from like 400 to like $120. Then we had a little run for like the second half of Q3, and then we had the Q4 and Q1 rally, right? I think we started rallying on alts in like November of 2017 all the way through January 18. So that was 3 runs, right? So ETFs or not, I'm not going to change my way of thinking. I'm just not, because the market conditions are they're so good right now. They're really they're really good if you're in tune with the flow of things, right? And they won't last forever. And that's why, like, you know, I'm always going to keep in the back of my head that like this market is a gift. And I think we have like 18 months at the very least, right? Usually the cycles peak out 18 months post halving, and then they bottom out 18 months before the halving. And I've been documenting this since I've known Edward, to be honest. We go back since like late 2017, early 2018, and this is all documented on my profile too. Back in early 2022, I was saying that, like, you know, the bottom's probably not in until November of 2022, 18 months before the halving. And when we approached that time, I said, all right, we're 18 months out from the halving. This is it. And now I'm applying that same thing for the top. And so, you know, I'm just paying attention to seasonality. And usually for altcoins, no matter if it's the halving year or the post-halving year or the pre-halving year, usually when we're in a bull market, most of the upside happens in Q1 and Q4. And there are small echo bubbles in between in Q2 and in Q3. So, you know, the most bullish case for me is, you know, just chop solidating going into the halving, and then out of the halving, start the ETH ETF narrative, then send alts for their first major leg up. And that would also include Ethereum. And just to paint a broader picture, the rally that we had in February, right? The entire month of February, where Ethereum from the February open to the beginning of March went up like 50-60%, and ETH BTC caught a bid. Most altcoins went up like crazy. It was a very fruitful time, those few weeks, especially when we were in Denver, right? A lot of narratives just okay, let me turn off Discord here. All right.
I was going to say we need to turn off notifications.
Yeah. But yeah.
Lobby, what you're talking about here, man, is more or less this. Everything except for the first Bitcoin halving, you know, this cycle's a little shorter. But if you just measure from Bitcoin halving all the way until global top, you know, in the 2017 cycle, it was 518 days.
Yes.
Third halving, it was 546 days. So let's just even say conservatively 500 days, right on the dot, right? I mean, we're on the 2 weeks, so let's just say that would take you into basically late Q3 of 2025. Is that you're thinking this time is no different? That's where we're headed.
Yeah. But I think there's something to be said that this cycle can also be extended because of the ETFs. So where I'm getting at is like, usually an example would be like 2017, 2018, right? In 2018, going into the summertime, the NASDAQ was going up like crazy while Bitcoin was crapping the bed. It had a double top in May of 2018 at like 10.3K or something. And the NASDAQ ended up making an all-time high going into the summertime. I think it was like June or July, while BTC was basically just range bound from like 6 to 7K, right? So I think the equity markets, right, they usually peak in Q4, and that's how I would say like 18 months after the halving, right? 18 months after the halving would take us to October, maybe extend a little bit more, have some froth, around Thanksgiving, and yeah, that's the way I'm looking at things, right? I think we have a good tailwind with the equity markets, right? And I don't think you see the NASDAQ made an all-time high in June and July. Give me a sec.
I feel like SPY has a little more alpha there, Max. Like if you were to line up SPY, it actually lines up a lot better with Bitcoin in those ranges. But I mean, like in the current range, like, again, I still consistently see people on Twitter talking about 30% pullback, 40% pullback, the normie conversation. And I feel like we've had this conversation from the 25 to 30K range. We've had this conversation from the 40 to 50K range. And now again, we're having this conversation from the 60 to 75K range. And it's almost like textbook, level up type price action that just people are just continuing to look for the normie things that happen that are just not happening.
Well, I think a lot of people still expect and I'm never going to say that this time is different, but we have seen changes in market dynamics very clearly reflected over the last like year and a half, really since the advent of 2023. Volatility on Bitcoin has just not been the same. And a lot of that has to do with, of course, you have options that are now playing a bigger role in the market. You have a lot of Fugazi stable coins still in the market that do a lot to suppress volatility. So really, I mean, maybe there is like still the capability for this market. I have always said, like, we can see when TradFi sells off, Bitcoin will probably be even more so affected. So from that standpoint, if TradFi ever has, an event, quote unquote, then Bitcoin will probably be even more reflexive to the downside. But unless that happens, we are seeing Bitcoin volatility really die. And what that creates is a very similar dynamic to equities, where over time, the dips get smaller. Obviously, the upside volatility gets smaller as well, but it is just kind of like that perpetual slow grind up over time in similar fashion. So I could see that with Bitcoin, right? And I agree with you, Wabi. I'm pretty interested to see what they do with this ETH ETF. I think the XRP decision is equally as important for altcoins, but I'm open to the possibility that we can start to maybe leg up again in mid. Sorry, it's something in my throat, but maybe like mid to late May. I think that would be enough chop for this market. Otherwise, we're probably just going to go sideways for like 4 or 5 months, and yeah, that wouldn't be super fun, but you'd probably have like a headline or two that would ignite some life into the market for a few weeks, kind of like what we saw last year.
Yeah, but again, it's still, it reads back to this 30, 40, 50% pullback that everybody's looking for is not coming, right? Like, and I think that's what a lot of people are not anticipating. Everybody anticipates the pullback. Nobody anticipates the pullback's not going to happen. And I continue to see it as the topic of conversation between all bears and even bulls on the timeline. So I tend to curve the majority and play in the minority, because when everybody's playing on the same side of the playground, somebody's bound to get hurt. And I think everybody's playing on the
this,
same side.
man. We should look at this. I was just playing with this.
I know Krillin was posting about that yesterday.
Do you see that, Tommy? That looks pretty good.
I have seen it. Yeah, it's painting the picture for like extended chop.
I mean, it would be extended chop till like July, and then we'd literally just go straight up for like a year. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I
Yep.
could absolutely see something like that. You know, if I would say if we don't break out in May, that's probably the most likely scenario.
I mean, it would be brutal, but I see it, man. I definitely see it. Max, you should pull this up. Oh, you're working hard. Let me pull it up real quick, and I'll switch it back to you.
Who's gonna pull a Tommy?
I don't want to mess up his beautiful art, but yeah. So basically, the the thesis is this.
That wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, honestly. I
No,
mean,
it
it'd be a
wouldn't.
little frustrating, but
Just look at that. Yeah. I mean, obviously you had COVID, so that does kind of mess the chart up. But I mean, just looking at it, it looks pretty good. And if you throw a fractal on it, it even looks better. But let's see what we can do here.
I would argue if we do something like that, you probably see JPEGs and NFTs continue to run.
Yep, you hit the nail on the head, and that's why I've been accumulating while a lot of people have just been talking shit about them.
Let's see. Maybe even a little more.
I mean, that looks beautiful, man. I mean, the pennant lines up and everything, and then you get the fake out pump into the fake out dump into the actual rip.
Yeah, I mean, this you wouldn't even like break out. You wouldn't be above 75K until like August, which would
that's
be a
too
little
long,
brutal,
bro.
but
That's too long.
I have a hard time seeing us consolidate for like 7 months and then only break to 75K on a squeeze.
and then do that, and then
That would just be an absolutely stupid amount of positioning built
You,
up.
you can consider too, you can tighten that time span. It doesn't have to be that exact distance. You can tighten that up and give, like, basically the thesis we've been talking about, probably 2 more months. Tighten that up into 2 more months and then let it run.
there you go.
I mean, that looks a lot like what happened last year anyway, where we had that additional pump into like 31K or whatever at the time.
That's my masseuse right there.
There it is. Yeah, maybe even make it a 3-day. Lower.
I like it, man. I think it's like tit for tat.
Yeah, that would be like breakout in May, 87K, rug everybody, and then just send it.
But that's what I've been talking about, Tucker. I was like 80 to 90 is probably where we're going. Everybody gets hard rug there. That's your 30% pullback, and then your market rip.
Yeah, even the that would make the meme Ray work out. Oh, look at that. Jesus. He's done
That'd be
it.
so epic.
He's done it again. Yeah.
Rally into September, and then I'm assuming that would just be basically distribution into altcoins for probably the next 4 or 5 months, rug in like Q1, Q2.
This
Maybe
would be,
double top second
September
half
would
of
be like the
2025.
top. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't even know where I took this to, honestly. That was only to here, man. Jeez. You guys don't even want this. You guys couldn't even handle this. Oh no. Take off the magnet. That would be if you fully repeated this. But
Secretly, Will's salivating because he can just keep pouring money into the market.
Yeah, the only difference here though is like, while this looks similar to this, I mean, we weren't even, maybe COVID screwed it up, but I mean, we weren't even close to all-time highs, obviously, right? I mean, we did look similar to this little bit of price action right there, but in terms of where we are relative to the halving, right? This was April pre-halving year, or halving year, right? So timing, that makes more sense. Price, this makes more sense. But I mean, like, look, here's the deal at the end of the day. You're either right here or you're right here. Okay. So everybody calm down because
I want to
there
pose
you go.
another scenario that I've kind of been talking about a little bit, which is that we're mimicking the Tesla adoption cycle.
Oh, geez. Where?
Let me get the exact date.
What am I on? Give me the 3-day.
Specifically, the consolidation at in August 2020 to November 2020 on Tesla.
Oh. 2020.
Why so bearish? That's all I gotta ask, man. Just look at the very first portion of Tesla before it ever ran up. That's where
Well,
we're
look,
at.
Tesla's bottoming here. Tesla's about to have its next macro leg up probably over the course of this year. I mean,
Wait,
to
so
me,
you're
this is
saying
kind of like
this?
the first phase. Yeah, I mean, I think that's where we are personally. And I also think that lends a lot of validation to kind of the idea that you see Bitcoin perpetually grind higher over time. Altcoins will probably look like crypto volatility won't disappear, but it will on Bitcoin. You know, we'll still have these cycles driven by basically pure liquidity levels. But over time, Bitcoin is probably just going to continue growing higher or going higher because the bid has been strong. At the end of the day, altcoins are always going to be sold for Bitcoin to support it. And of course, I mean, you guys know I operate very strongly on pattern recognition, and I think there are a lot of similarities in these charts, and also just kind of the way that the relationship between like retail and these assets and how it's perceived is somewhat similar to me as well.
So you think here somewhere?
Yeah, I think we're in here, but if we haven't broken out by like the end of May, then I think you're probably going to see like an extended period of sideways.
Let's map it out. One, two.
I don't know that we've had the second red arrow yet, though. I will say that. I think we're still grinding up into it right now. If you zoom in on the Tesla price action more, you'll really see what I'm talking about. Like the 12-hour.
Need another. The 12-hour.
Yeah.
That's the 3-day.
It's a very similar looking range to me. We're getting close to that second red arrow right now, in my opinion. And then we'd get that scenario that I know Will's talked about where you have the fake breakdown from the trend line, and then they send it.
So you don't think we've gotten...
No, I think we're grinding into it right now, yeah.
Okay, and then we'll rug down to here and then just go. How long did this take?
I think it was like 3 months in TradFi.
Where would you even measure it from? I'm just
Maybe
going to
4.
measure from the top to the
No,
breakout. It was 84 days. From the top, 84 days would be June. I mean, obviously crypto is faster, right? So it's not necessarily comparable, but yeah, it does look similar. I mean, basically you would just, you'd probably fill out this one. You probably fill out this one a little more. Yeah, you probably just fill out this one.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about before, Tommy, with the fake structure breakdown, because the second you get that structure breakdown at these higher lows and it looks like you failed, everybody's going to sell, right? And they're going to be selling into momentum is what they're going to be doing. They're going to be passing their tokens on to the market maker.
There you go.
And this is a typical pattern too. Jack has said it the other day, and I do agree 100%. A typical pattern for like a wedge like this is for the wedge to break down and then break out. It's atypical.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? We've seen that. Like they love to prey on triangle traders.
Mm-hmm.
The only time you're in a like honestly, the time to start selling is when triangle breakouts are like working without fail.
Yeah.
Yeah, the second that trend looks beautiful, that's when it's like, okay, I could probably get a little more out of this. Let me sell the position and pick it up later. But I wouldn't tell like a normal person to do that. You got to really know what you're doing if that comes to fruition, because you got to know, okay, I've been invalidated. They're going to actually rescind this rather than break it down before breaking it out.
80% pump from Tesla. Bitcoin will obviously do more.
Just triple that and we're good.
I do think
Just
it's going
triple
above
that.
100K if that plays out for sure, like 110, 120 in that vicinity.
For
But then,
sure.
of course, you can see the pullback after that happen. That would basically take Bitcoin back to like 80K in
Yeah.
that scenario. This is why I think altcoins will just continually cycle with liquidity.
And
a fractal, man.
You know what the funny part is here, Tommy? The second they get to 100K and pull back to 80, everybody's going to say it's topped. That's going to be their 30%
Bro, think about how
pullback
that
they've been looking
altcoins
for.
would get decimated. If that happened, man.
Oh yeah, they get wrecked.
All right, let's play with
That's been my thesis the whole time is hit 100, run it back, scare everybody out, take all their tokens and run it higher.
Scare the hose.
And then once you start going to like 150, 165, I think you're teetering on risk. But prior to that, I think you're good. And I think once they get to 160, 175, most people that got out at 100 are going to start rebuying there at significant losses.
If we go to 140 by June, dude.
Yeah.
Pepe to 69 billion.
Tomfoolery. That's what that is. Tomfoolery.
Get on board, Wabi. Get on board.
Hooligans.
I will be acting a fool if Pepe goes up like 10x.
Yeah, I think that's probably like the cycle top. Like when I see Pepe at 50 bill, whew, I'm out, buddy.
What was it? Shiba reach last time? Wasn't it like 36 billion or something crazy?
Nah, SHIB went to like 60 bill.
60, yeah, 60 bill.
Yeah.
I thought it was like 30 something bill. But
it flipped Doge at one point.
It went above 50 bill.
So like that's what I think. I think Pepe has the ability to be the Shiba this cycle for sure.
Dude, and SHIB was a terrible meme too. Like
it was a good community though. Solid community.
42 billion.
42?
42 billion.
Still, Pepe is the easiest 10x in crypto from 3.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a play. I'm still continuing to watch these chains that nobody's using. I think that once the market starts bidding up, you're going to start getting a lot of speculation, and these things that haven't seen runs have a lot of X's in them.
Let's see.
It's just the point and click phase. When you get to the point and click phase, that's the fun part.
You know what's a good meme, man, that I missed out on that I regret, but I'm not gonna fade it? A poo. That's a good one, man. A poo. That's the Pepe that everybody uses on their memes. The
Dude,
dev.
I remember buying a poo last summer when like all the frog frenzy was going on. That was like right after I sold Pepe the first time. I was like, oh yeah, I'll play a poo. And then Pepe just kept ripping.
I'm talking about the Apu that launched last month that went to like 300 mil market cap where the dev rugged and then it's a community takeover. I'm talking about that one.
Who doesn't love a good community takeover?
Yeah, that's what most memes are, right? Community
I
takeover.
absolutely hate them. Absolutely. Like all the derivative community takeovers go to zero.
I don't know.
Somebody asking about Whiff in the comments. We can talk about Whiff. I think Whiff's going back to $2, brother. I'll be honest.
And,
But I think that's
and
low.
Yeah,
and keep in mind, I'm talking about community derivative takeovers, right? Like Whiff and then Whiff Killer. Like if they say like Whiff Killer, that shit's going to zero.
Dude, this has to be a higher low though, Tommy, if it's gonna do the Tesla.
I think it will be.
Oh, 65K is the low. Done and
Basically.
done. Fine with me, bro. Oh
That's
my
kind of what I'm
God.
thinking is going to happen. But you know, we can always change our bias.
No, you're locked in. This has to happen now, Tommy.
No, I do want to be clear because I see people in the comments asking about like Andy's. Like I'm not talking about like the boys club thing. Those are all like they're derivatives, but they're like separate entities. They're not the Pepe Killer, right? They're all part of the same community. No, I don't mean like investors, but like just like as far as the story goes. But with when you start to see like things come out and say we're gonna kill Shiba, we're gonna kill Doge, we're the Doge killer, like those things go to zero. They absolutely go to zero. If you see a Pepe, we're gonna Pepe killer, it's going to zero.
I don't think anybody's saying that. Not that I've seen. I don't think people are saying that.
I've seen a few derivatives that try that, and they went to zero.
Well, anyways, all right, we should call it here, guys. We've been going for over an hour and a half. Guys, thanks so much for being here. Great show. I'm just gonna let Tommy do the outro, man. Tommy, you got it, man.
Awesome.
Let him know.
Yeah, good timing. I just ran to my fridge to get my stimmy. The second I got back, I was hearing Max start to do the outro a little bit. But whew, yeah, guys, that was a great show today. Had a special guest appearance from King Wabi. Make sure to tune in. Just touch on our programming here real quick. Make sure to tune in for his show, Market Talk, later this afternoon. Wabi, what time are you guys going live today?
Most likely 4
Eastern time?
Yeah, 4:20.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So y'all make sure to tune in for Market Talk with King Wabi. That is our flagship show. It's a Twitter Spaces where they talk markets, everything from macro to meme coins. And Wabi does an exceptional job as the host over there. So make sure to tune in to that to wrap up our programming for the week here at BB. And next week, of course, a reminder that Market Check will return at our typical start time around 11 a.m. Eastern time. We are live Monday through Friday at the same time here on YouTube. And as always, guys, whenever we do go live, we will post about it through both our Twitter as well as, Market Check will post about it on YouTube as well. But Market Talk, we will post about it on Twitter. So make sure to stay subscribed so you can be notified when we go live. But it's been a great week, guys. It's hard to believe it's already Friday. Even when these markets are not really doing anything, I feel like time can fly by pretty quickly. But maybe that's just a product of working in crypto, where these markets are 24/7 and there's always something to catch your attention, right? Like 3 weeks ago, it was Sol. Last week, it was Base. Now everybody's having fun on ordinals and Bitcoin. So there's always something to be doing in this market. And let's hope that doesn't change anytime soon, right? But that's it from us. To our Giga Chads, we will see you on our afternoon call later today. But y'all have a fantastic rest of your week, a great weekend. Spend some time with your family. Try to get this chop out of your brains, but it's a patience game now. It's a patience game. Y'all have a great rest of your day. Thanks again.